The night was supposed to be magical. The lights of Eastfield High's gym shimmered like stars, music thumping in time with hundreds of teenage hearts. But for Maya Carter, the girl standing quietly by the punch table, it was the night that would change everything. No one noticed her at first. The new girl who had transferred only a few months ago. She stood in her soft blue dress, a shade that matched her calm eyes, her hair braided neatly to one side. But calm wasn't what she felt. Every muscle in her body was trained to react, to calculate, to prepare. Because before she ever stepped into that gym, Maya had learned what it meant to fight. Not for trophies, but for respect. The laughter started before the trouble did. It came from the center of the dance floor where Ryan Pierce, the golden boy of Eastfield, stood surrounded by his usual group of friends. Tall, broad-shouldered, his name etched into every sports trophy the school owned. And tonight his attention wasn't on the music or his date. It was on Maya. "She doesn't belong here," Ryan muttered, his voice sharp enough to slice through the music. The words spread like wildfire, carried by whispers and smirks. A moment later, he was moving toward her, his teammates following in formation, their expensive suits and perfect smiles hiding something far uglier beneath. The music stopped. The DJ froze mid-beat, and the room fell into a heavy silence broken only by the echo of Ryan's polished shoes hitting the floor. Maya turned slowly, her reflection flickering in the mirrored disco ball above. Every eye in the room was on her. "What's this?" Ryan's tone was mocking. "Didn't think people like you came to our prom." He gestured around as if the gym, with its glitter and balloon, belonged to him. His friends laughed, loud enough to sting. Maya didn't move. She didn't even flinch. Her hands hung at her sides, fingers curling slightly. Not out of fear, but out of habit. She'd spent years learning control in a boxing ring. Every breath, every muscle, every ounce of restraint was trained. While Ryan grinned for his audience, Maya's thoughts drifted to earlier that evening, to the moment before all of this began. Flashback. 3 hours earlier, her bedroom smelled faintly of coconut oil and determination. Instead of posters of pop stars, her walls were covered with photos from tournaments, snapshots of her standing in victory poses, medals gleaming in the sunlight. On her desk sat a framed certificate, Junior National Boxing Champion Women's Division. Maya traced her finger over the words, her reflection caught in the glass. Breathe. Focus. Control. The mantra came softly under her breath, the same one her coach had drilled into her for years. Her mother, Lieutenant Denise Carter, stood in the doorway in her crisp military uniform, arms folded with pride. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," she said, smiling in that strong, steady way she always did. "You sure you want to go?" Maya asked quietly. "It's only been a few months since we moved here. No one really knows me yet." Her mother stepped closer, adjusting the necklace around Maya's neck. "Since when do you back down from a challenge?" she asked. "School's just another kind of ring." The words landed like a spark, simple but powerful. On the dresser beside her lay a small golden medal from her last fight. Her mother nodded toward it. "Take it. For confidence." Maya tucked it into a hidden pocket in her dress, feeling its familiar cool weight against her hip. It grounded her, a reminder of who she really was beneath the dress and makeup. Not just a girl, not just the new kid, a fighter. As she stepped out the door, her mother called after her. "Remember who you are, Maya. You don't need to prove it to anyone." The drive to the school was quiet. The sun had long set, and the streetlights painted the night in streaks of gold. When Maya parked and stepped out, the bass from inside the gym pulsed through the ground beneath her heels. She took one steady breath, squared her shoulders, and walked through the doors. The moment she entered, eyes began to follow her. Not openly at first, and just curious glances that lingered too long. "Who's that?" someone whispered. "Isn't she the transfer student?" "The quiet one?" Maya smiled politely, pretending not to notice. She'd faced tougher crowds before, in boxing rings where opponents wanted to crush her spirit. This was nothing compared to that. Or so she thought. Across the room, Ryan was already watching her. And the night was about to turn into a match she never asked for, but one she would never forget. Ryan's laugh cut through the air like a knife, sharp and deliberate. The crowd had already begun to part around him, leaving Maya standing in the center of the gym's polished floor. The spinning lights danced across her blue dress, but she barely noticed them. Her focus was on the way Ryan moved. Confident, entitled, dangerous in that casual way only someone who had never faced real consequences could be. "Well, if it isn't our new charity guest," he said loudly enough for half the room to hear. His friend smirked behind him, feeding off his arrogance. "Didn't think you'd actually show up, Carter." "Brave of you." Maya kept her chin high, her expression calm. "I was invited. Just like everyone else." Her voice was steady, her tone unshaken. It surprised a few people nearby who were expecting her to crumble or retreat. Ryan tilted his head, pretending to consider her words. "Invited? Sure, but you don't really fit in, do you?" He glanced toward his friends, waiting for the laughter that always followed his lead. They didn't disappoint. For a moment. Maya said nothing. Her silence made him uneasy. The room held its breath. Then he took a step closer, invading her space. The scent of expensive cologne mixed with the sugary air of spilled punch. "Don't take it personally," he said. "Some people just aren't meant to be here." Her heartbeat slowed instead of quickening. Every muscle in her body knew this rhythm. The quiet before a bell rings, the pause before the first move. She could almost hear her coach's voice in her memory. "Stay balanced. Don't react. Make them show their hand first." Ryan raised his plastic cup and smirked. "Cheers to outsiders?" He pretended to stumble, tilting his wrist. Cold red punch splattered across Maya's dress, staining the blue fabric like a cruel joke. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered, "Oh no," but no one stepped forward. Ryan grinned. "Guess blue wasn't your color anyway." Maya looked down at her dress. The liquid soaked through the fabric, reaching the cool metal of her hidden metal. The weight of it steadied her. She took a slow breath. Her mother's words replayed in her mind. "School's just another kind of ring." She looked up at Ryan again, her voice calm but sharp enough to cut through the music that had just started back up. "You don't know the first thing about respect." The words hit him harder than he expected. His grin faltered for a heartbeat before twisting back into anger. "What did you just say to me?" The circle around them grew tighter. Phones appeared, their small screens glowing. The crowd wasn't going to stop this. They were here for entertainment. Ryan leaned in, lowering his voice. "Do you even know who I am? My dad's on the city council. My family practically built this school." Maya's gaze didn't waver. "And that's supposed to mean something?" A murmur swept through the students. No one talked to Ryan Pierce like that. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by someone he'd already decided didn't belong. His jaw tightened. "You should think carefully before you talk to me like that." "Careful is something I've been trained to be," Maya said softly. He didn't understand the meaning behind her words. Most of them didn't. But Kevin, the wrestling team captain standing in the back, noticed the way she shifted her stance. Subtle, balanced, precise. He frowned slightly. "Wait," he whispered to a friend. "She moves like a fighter." Ryan stepped forward again, his face inches from hers. "You're not wanted here. You get that, right?" Her eyes didn't blink. "I understand perfectly." The silence that followed was heavy. Somewhere behind them, a teacher's voice shouted across the room, distracted by something else. No help was coming. Maya knew that now. This was her space to control. Ryan's friends moved in closer, creating a half circle that boxed her against the wall beneath the school's championship banners. The crowd pressed in, feeding on tension. Ryan smirked again, regaining his swagger. "No one's going to save you, Carter." Maya's lips curved slightly. "Good," she said. "I don't need saving." Her calm unnerved him. "You really think you can talk to me like that?" She reached up, unpinned the small white flower corsage from her dress and handed it to a girl standing nearby. The girl stared, unsure whether to take it. Maya smiled at her, a quiet, steady smile that said everything without words. Then she turned back to Ryan. Her breath slowed, perfectly timed. Her shoulders relaxed. She wasn't tensed for attack. She was centered like she always was before the first round began. Ryan's anger flared again. "You're not scaring anyone," he said, though his voice had lost some of its strength. He lunged forward, aiming to shove her against the wall. But Maya moved. To everyone else, it was barely noticeable. A tiny slip to the side, the kind of motion so natural it seemed accidental. But to Ryan it felt impossible. His hand swiped through empty air. His momentum carried him forward, almost throwing him off balance. "What the?" he blurted, stumbling slightly. A ripple of whispers ran through the crowd. "Did you see that?" What just happened? She dodged him. Ryan's friends looked confused. Ryan himself looked furious. Think that's funny? He growled. You think you're better than me? I think you should stop before you embarrass yourself, Maya replied evenly. The quiet confidence in her voice sent a chill through him. Around them, the gym lights seemed brighter, the music quieter. Every eye was on them, waiting for the next move. He took another step forward. This time, 2 of his teammates flanked him. We'll see how tough you really are, he said. The crowd gasped. Even Kevin in the back muttered, this is about to go bad. But Maya didn't move back. Her hands, still at her sides, curled just slightly. Relaxed, ready, calm. The look in her eyes was different now. Focused, steady, controlled. She wasn't there to fight. But she was ready if she had to. And deep down, something in Ryan's instincts finally told him. He might have picked the wrong opponent. Ryan hesitated, just long enough for the tension to thicken in the air. The silence stretched. The crowd could feel it, the energy that comes right before something big happens. For a heartbeat, even the lights seemed to slow their spin, scattering silver patterns across the floor like sparks waiting to ignite. Come on, one of Ryan's friends urged, trying to sound bold. She's not going to do anything. But his voice cracked at the end. Because deep down, everyone could feel that something about Maya wasn't ordinary. Ryan straightened his shoulders, forcing his smirk back into place. Let's finish this, he said, stepping forward again. His friends tightened their half-circle, closing off her escape. The move was deliberate, rehearsed like a defensive line on the football field. They had done this before to others who never fought back. Maya glanced at each of them calmly. Her breathing stayed steady. Her feet anchored on the slick gym floor. She didn't feel trapped. She felt centered. The same centeredness she felt every time she stepped into a ring under the blinding lights, with the crowd shouting her name. The air here smelled different, perfume, sweat, and fear, but the rhythm was the same. Ryan leaned closer, his voice low enough that only she could hear. This is your last chance to walk away. She didn't move. You talk too much, she said. Something in her tone made him falter. He reached out, his hand closing around her wrist, but it never made contact. In one clean, fluid motion, Maya shifted her body and redirected his hand away. No struggle, no brute strength, just perfect timing and control. The move was so effortless that for a second, it looked like he had stumbled into his own mistake. A murmur rippled through the onlookers. Did you see that? Someone whispered. She barely touched him. Ryan blinked, disoriented. What was that? He barked. You think you can fight? Maya didn't answer. Her silence was louder than his anger. Around them, the circle of students swayed forward, curiosity winning over fear. Phones hovered higher. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Kevin, the wrestling captain, was the first to connect the dots. He took a step closer, his brow furrowed. Wait, he said slowly. I know her. She's the one from the regional boxing circuit last year, Maya Carter. She won gold. The whisper spread like fire through dry grass. She's a boxer? No way. That was her? The one who won nationals? Ryan's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief, then to something more dangerous, embarrassment. His cheeks flushed, his pride bleeding faster than any bruise could. You think that matters? He said, his voice trembling slightly. This isn't some ring. You can't just... Maya took a slow step forward. The air between them seemed to thicken, every sound in the gym fading behind the quiet rhythm of her breathing. No, she said. It's not a ring. It's a choice. Her words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Ryan's eyes narrowed. His pride couldn't handle the silence, the humiliation of being challenged in front of everyone. He lunged, not to punch but to shove, to prove power through force. But he never reached her. She moved again, faster this time. Her body turned just enough for his shoulder to miss her completely. The shift was elegant, a dance of instinct and precision. Before anyone could process it, she followed the motion with a quick pivot, her foot sliding softly against the gym floor. Her hands lifted, not to strike but to stop, her fists forming perfectly aligned guard positions. The crowd gasped. Ryan froze mid-motion. He could feel the rush of air from her hand as it stopped an inch from his face, controlled so tightly it might as well have been a whisper. Every sound disappeared. The DJ had stopped playing. The disco ball spun in silence. You could hear the faint hum of the lights above, the heartbeat of 100 students holding their breath. Maya lowered her hands, her movements slow and precise. "I don't need to hit you," she said quietly. "You've already lost." Ryan stumbled backward. His foot caught the edge of the punch table, sending the crystal bowl tumbling. Red punch splashed across his pristine white tuxedo, dripping down like spilled pride. The sound of glass shattering broke the silence, followed by a single gasp that turned into a wave of whispers. In that instant, everyone saw him differently. The untouchable boy, now drenched and shaking, his arrogance dissolving with the red stains spreading across his clothes. "Maya Carter," a voice said from the crowd. It was Mr. Daniels, the physics teacher who coached the school's sports analytics club, junior national boxing champion. I knew I recognized that stance. The murmurs turned into a chorus. "She's a champion? That's her? Oh my God, she didn't even touch him." Ryan's breath came fast, his confidence crumbling with each word around him. He looked at her, searching for something: anger, triumph, mockery. But her expression stayed calm. "I didn't come here to fight," she said, her tone even and unshaken. "I came to dance." The simplicity of it cut through everything, the music, the whispers, even Ryan's fury. He blinked, unsure how to respond. Behind him, one of his friends muttered, "Let's go, man," but Ryan didn't move. His hands shook slightly. He finally found his voice, smaller now. "You could have hit me," he said. "Why didn't you?" "Because real strength," Maya said, "is knowing when you don't have to." The crowd broke into a low hum of agreement. A few people nodded. The hierarchy that had ruled Eastfield for years cracked right there on that gym floor. For the first time, Ryan wasn't the one in control. As Maya stepped back, the light from the disco ball caught the faint shimmer of the dried punch on her dress. Somehow she looked even more composed, untouched, unshaken, undeniable. Ryan stared at her, silent. Then, for the first time in his life, he looked away. The tension broke like glass underfoot. The crowd began to murmur, voices overlapping in a wave of disbelief. No one could quite process what they had seen. Ryan Pierce, the untouchable king of Eastfield High, stood drenched in punch, shaking from adrenaline and humiliation, while the quiet new girl didn't even look winded. Maya stood perfectly still, her breathing steady, her gaze locked on nothing in particular, the kind of calm that only came after surviving worse, the kind of calm born from training yourself to never flinch, even when everyone expects you to. Mr. Daniels, still standing at the edge of the crowd, gave a small nod of recognition. "Control like that takes years," he murmured. It wasn't loud, but it carried. A few students turned toward Maya with wide eyes, realization dawning. The crowd began to shift. Those who had once snickered behind their hands were now whispering her name in awe. "She's incredible. Did you see her hands? She didn't even touch him." Ryan finally looked up. His confidence was gone, replaced by something rawer, confusion, maybe even shame. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but no words came out. For the first time, the weight of every careless action pressed down on him. He had meant to humiliate her. Instead, he had exposed himself. Maya exhaled quietly. She looked around at the faces circling her, faces that had once turned away, that had whispered about her behind lockers. She wasn't angry anymore, just tired. "I didn't want this," she said, her voice low but clear enough to travel through the quiet gym. None of it. Her words hit harder than any punch could have. Mr. Daniels stepped forward just as Principal Harris pushed through the students, his bow tie crooked, eyes wide from the chaos. "What's going on here?" he demanded. The crowd instantly parted for him. No one answered right away. Then Mr. Daniels spoke calmly. "Just a little accident with the punch bowl, sir. No harm done." The principal's eyes darted between the toppled table, Ryan's stained shirt, and Maya standing quietly beside it. His frown softened slightly as he caught the unspoken truth in Mr. Daniels' tone. "Accidents happen," he said finally, though his voice carried the authority of someone who saw more than he admitted. "Let's clean this up and get back to enjoying the evening." As the crowd slowly dispersed, some still staring, the DJ hesitated before turning the music back on. A slow song filled the air, soft and almost tender, as if the universe itself wanted to smooth out the sharp edges left behind. Ryan stood rooted for a moment, dripping punch onto the floor. His friends hovered nearby, uncertain, their loyalty shaken. He finally met Maya's eyes again. "You could have hit me," he said quietly. "Why didn't you?" "Because that's not strength," she replied. "That's just noise." Her words settled between them like dust in sunlight, quiet, undeniable. He nodded once, almost to himself, before turning to follow Mr. Daniels' suggestion and clean up. His friends followed, but their laughter didn't return. It was as if something sacred had been broken in that room, something that could never quite be put back together. As Ryan disappeared toward the restrooms, a few students approached Maya hesitantly. Emma Brooks, one of the student council officers, was the first. "That was incredible," she said, her voice almost reverent. "You didn't even flinch." Maya smiled politely. "I've had practice." Another student stepped closer, holding out a towel. "You really boxed in the nationals?" Maya hesitated. Talking about boxing had always felt personal, like letting people peek behind armor she built herself. But tonight she didn't feel the need to hide it. "Yeah," she said softly. "I did." Kevin, the wrestling captain, joined in. "The way you moved, perfect footwork. I've never seen anything like that. Could you maybe teach me some of that sometime?" For the first time that night, Maya's smile reached her eyes. "Maybe," she said, "if you're serious." As they talked, the atmosphere in the gym shifted again. The same students who had once seen her as an outsider were now circling back, curiosity replacing distance. They weren't drawn to her for the fight. They were drawn to her composure, the quiet confidence that came from strength without arrogance. The music swelled. Someone fixed the punch table. A new bowl was set out. Life moved on, but something fundamental in Eastfield's social order had cracked open. Maya looked down at her dress. The stain had dried now, dark against the shimmering fabric. But it no longer looked like damage. It looked like a badge, proof that grace could endure even when dignity was tested. Across the gym, Ryan reappeared. His tuxedo jacket was gone, his white shirt damp but clean. The swagger that had defined him all year had vanished. He walked toward her, slower this time, his expression uncertain. When he stopped in front of her, the crowd fell silent again, expecting another confrontation. Instead, he extended his hand. "Truce?" Maya looked at the offered hand for a long moment before shaking it once. "Truce," he nodded. "You were right," he said, voice lower than before. "I was wrong about you." "We're all wrong about people sometimes," she replied. "The hard part is learning from it." He nodded again. No sarcasm, no smirk, just quiet understanding. As he turned away, Emma stepped closer to Maya, smiling shyly. "You know, I've been wanting to talk to you since you corrected Coach Myers about military ranks last month." "You were right about that, by the way." Maya laughed softly. "Force of habit. My mom's a soldier." "That explains the discipline," Kevin said, grinning, "and the reflexes." For the first time that night, Maya didn't feel like she was standing alone. She wasn't just the new girl anymore. She was part of something, small, fragile, but real. The DJ switched to a faster song and Emma tugged at her hand. "Come on, you actually deserve to dance now." Maya hesitated, then let herself be pulled toward the floor. The students who once stared now stepped aside with smiles, not fear. She moved easily, her athletic grace translating into rhythm, each step light but deliberate. She caught sight of Ryan on the other side of the room. He was laughing again, but it was different this time, softer, more human. He caught her eye and raised his hand in a small wave. She nodded back. As the music carried on, the gym no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like balance restored. Respect wasn't given that night, it was earned quietly without fists, without shouting. Maya felt the cool weight of her medal in her pocket and realized she didn't need it anymore to remind her who she was. The strength that mattered most wasn't the kind that won trophies. It was the kind that walked away from conflict with calm instead of chaos. The night was beginning to wind down, but no one wanted to leave. The lights in the gym had softened, glowing golden against the shimmering decorations that now looked less like cheap school decor and more like something meaningful. The crowd that once laughed at Maya now surrounded her in quiet admiration. It was subtle, no applause, no dramatic speech, just a shift. The kind that said everything had changed. She stood near the gym doors, the faint hum of the final song echoing through the room. Her new friends, Emma, Kevin, and a few others, lingered close by, talking in low voices about everything and nothing. For the first time since she had moved to Eastfield, Maya wasn't on guard. The tension that had followed her from place to place had finally loosened its grip. Emma leaned against the wall beside her. "I still can't believe what you did," she said. "I thought he was going to push you, and then you just moved." "Like water." Maya smiled faintly. "That's what my coach used to say. Don't fight the wave. Be the wave." Kevin nodded thoughtfully. "That explains it. You didn't fight him. You just made him face himself." Maya glanced across the room where Ryan stood with a few of his teammates. They weren't laughing like before. They looked thoughtful, quiet, different. He caught her gaze, and this time there was no smirk, no challenge. Just a nod of respect. She returned it without hesitation. Her mother's voice came back to her mind, steady, firm, loving. School's just another kind of ring. She hadn't understood it fully until now. The fights outside the gym were quieter, but far more complicated. There were no gloves, no referees, no rounds. Just people trying to figure out who they were and where they belonged. The DJ's voice broke through the music, announcing the last dance of the night. Couples began moving toward the center of the floor, laughter rippling through the crowd again. The heaviness of the evening seemed to melt into something warmer. Emma smiled. "Guess that's our cue." She turned to Maya, eyes bright. "You're not getting out of dancing this time." "I don't really dance," Maya said, laughing softly. "You didn't really plan on fighting either, but you handled that just fine," Emma teased. "Come on," Maya hesitated, then stepped forward. The song began, slow, soft, the kind that carried emotion more than rhythm. Around her, friends swayed together. Couples held each other close. The gym that had once felt like a stage now felt like home. As she moved, her silver heels gliding against the floor, she caught sight of Ryan again. He stood by the edge of the crowd, watching, his expression unreadable. Then, to her surprise, he walked over, not arrogantly, not trying to reclaim his spotlight, but with quiet intent. He stopped a few feet away. "You dance better than you fight?" he asked, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Maya laughed. "Depends on who I'm dancing with." He extended his hand, not in challenge this time, but in peace. "Then let's find out." For a moment, the world paused. The same crowd that had once recorded their confrontation now watched in silence as the two of them, former enemies, stepped onto the dance floor together. Ryan's hand was steady, his movements careful. No dominance, no showmanship, just respect. As they moved with the rhythm, he spoke quietly. "I used to think strength meant being the loudest one in the room," he said. "Now I'm not so sure." "Strength isn't loud," Maya said softly. "It's quiet enough to listen, steady enough to stand its ground without needing to hurt anyone." He nodded slowly, the truth of it settling into him. "You taught me that tonight." "I didn't come here to teach," she said. "I came to be normal for once." He smiled faintly. "Looks like you did something better than normal." When the song ended, they stepped apart, and the crowd that had once fed off tension now clapped, not wildly, but with warmth. It wasn't about the fight anymore. It was about what came after. Maya stepped back toward her small group of new friends. Emma grinned, nudging her shoulder. "So, champion, you're definitely not allowed to disappear again. We're sitting with you at lunch next week." "Yeah," Kevin added. "And maybe you can show me how to block like that without breaking my wrist." Maya laughed. "Deal." As the students began to gather their things and the teachers dimmed the lights, she reached into the hidden pocket of her dress and felt the smooth curve of her medal. She pulled it out, letting it rest in her palm. It gleamed softly under the disco lights, reflecting her face back at her. Not as a fighter, not as an outsider, but as someone who had finally found balance. Emma noticed and smiled. "That's the one, isn't it? From the championship?" Maya nodded. "Yeah, I used to keep it with me for luck." "Still works," Emma said. Maya closed her hand around it one last time, then slipped it back into her pocket. "Not for luck," she said quietly. "For reminder." As she stepped outside into the cool night air, the sounds of laughter and fading music echoed behind her. The stars overhead glittered just like the sequins on her dress. For the first time, she didn't feel the need to shrink herself or hide her strength. She wasn't the girl who didn't belong anymore. She was Maya Carter, the girl who stood her ground, who proved that power wasn't in fists or titles, but in grace, restraint, and quiet courage. And that night, Every person who saw her understood something they hadn't before. Real strength doesn't shout. It doesn't need to. It just stands there, calm and certain, until the world learns to listen.